Hi, today we will be talking about significant figures. Significant meaning important, figures meaning numbers. So when we say significant figures, or sig figs as it's commonly abbreviated, we are talking about which numbers are important and which numbers you should carry through your calculations. There are 4 rules to figure out which numbers are significant, and please remember that you can pause if you do need to take notes throughout this lesson. Rule number 1. All non-zeros are significant, always. So numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, any number that's not a zero is always significant. Rule number 2, all leading zeros are not significant. So any zero at the beginning of a number is never a significant figure. Rule number 3, all sandwich zeros are significant. So if a zero falls between 2 non-zero numbers, for example 304, that zero would be significant. Rule number 4, zeros at the end of your number are significant if and only if there is a decimal. And yes, that is not a typo, that IFF means if and only if. Now let's go through the rules one by one. Rule number 1, all non-zero numbers are always significant. So for example, 143, we're trying to figure out how many of these are important or significant. Non-zero, 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 they're all non-zero, so they're all significant. 1, 2, 3, so that one has 3 significant figures. 816.2, I'm sure you've already figured it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 significant figures. 19.7. 1, 2, 3. 3 non-zero numbers, and they are all significant. So 3 significant figures, 4 significant figures, and 3 significant figures. Now let's add in rule number 2. Leading zeros are never significant. Let's look at our first one, 00159, or 159 cattle. The 1, the 5, and the 9 are non-zero numbers, so they are significant. However, these numbers are leading, so they are not significant. So that gives us 3 significant figures. 0.0159. Again, the 1, the 5, and the 9 are non-zero, so they are significant. But the zeros are at the beginning, they're leading, so they are not significant. So this one also has 3 significant figures. And our last one, 0.014. 1 and 4, non-zero, so they're not significant, or so they are significant. But the zeros at the beginning are not significant. So that gives us 2 significant figures. Now let's look at rule number 3. Sandwiched, or zeros in the middle of non-zero numbers, are significant. So if we look at our first example, 305, the 3 and the 5 are non-zeros, so they are always significant. But the 0 is trapped there, it's a placeholder, and that is also significant. So this one would have 1, 2, 3 sig figs. Now let's add a decimal point in, 10.03. The 1 and the 3, significant. The zeros are between them, also significant. So if you said 4, you're doing well. Now let's look at the last one and add back in rule number 2. We have 0.0703. Let's start where we know. 7 and the 3 are non-zero, so they are significant. The 0 is sandwiched between them, so it is also significant. But the 2 zeros at the very beginning, they're leading zeros, so they are not significant. So 0.0703 only has 3 significant digits. And this brings us to our final rule, rule number 4. Trailing zeros, or the 0 at the end, are significant if there is a decimal. An easy way to remember this? Yes dot yes, no dot no. So if there is a decimal, it is significant and it is counted. But if there is no decimal, then it is not significant and you do not count it. Let's put this into practice. 30. The 3 is significant because it is a non-zero digit. The 0 is at the end. And 0 is at the end. Yes dot yes, no dot no. No decimal. So it's not significant. So 30 only has one significant digit. Let's look at 30 with a decimal point. 30 point. That's the reason that there is sometimes a decimal at the end of a number. It's to tell you how many significant figures there are. So the 3 is a non-zero, so it is significant. And the 0 at the end is significant because there is a decimal. Yes dot yes. So 30 point would have two decimal figures. Now let's take this one step further. 30.0. The 3 is a non-zero, so it is significant, and the 0 is at the end. Yes dot yes. So that since there is a decimal, all zeros at the end are significant, and this has 1, 2, 3 significant figures. Now let's look at 17,400. Is there a decimal? No. No dot, not significant. So the 1, the 7, and the 4 are non-zeros, so they are significant. But those zeros at the end, they're just placeholders. So this only has 3 significant digits. Now let's look at 17.400. The 1, the 7, and the 4 are all non-zeros, so they are significant. But the zeros at the end, are they significant? There is a decimal, so they are indeed significant. They measure how much precision was used with the device. So there are 5 significant figures. Those are your 4 rules on how to figure out significant figures, which digits are and which ones aren't, and we'll see you next time.